Hello, this is David Perlman for Conversations at thewholenote.com in February 2013. I'm here with Wallis Giunta.
Hello.
Hello again.
It's lovely to be back.
15 months ago is what it was.
Good count.
Long
It
time.
wasn't so precise in my head.
You were just preparing for a gala at Roy Thompson Hall and being not too forthcoming about an upcoming COC announcement.
It's happening now.
It's happening right now. Sesto.
Actually, I'm Anio.
Oh, you're Anio.
Mainly, and I'm also the understudy for Sesto.
You did Sesto the one night.
I did. The second performance, I went on as Sesto. Our Sesto had a really bad cold, and that's how it works. We've also had replacements for Tito. Michael Shada was sick, and
I was there that night.
so one of the ensemble young men got to go on, and it was very successful. But yeah, that's just the reality of the business.
That was Owen McCausland, wasn't
Owen,
it? Yeah. And he's in the Canadian Opera Ensemble at the moment,
Yeah,
is he?
he's current member.
Current member. And you haven't been there for 2 years, right?
Yep, I had a season off. So my last season was 10-11, and I sang in the Magic Flute. This time that year, in the winter, and that was my last production with them. Yeah.
So you've been part of a couple of different young artist programs.
Yes.
Right?
2.
COC Ensemble and the Lindemann program at the Met.
Yeah.
Right? You just started with the Lindemann the first time we talked.
Yeah, and now I'm almost done. I'll be finished this May.
It's what, a 3-year or a 2?
It's 2. It can be 3, but for me, I'm going to do 2. Because it's my second program, and I think it's high time I just get out there and get going.
Yeah, it seems like you've got going, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
So some of the things with programs like these are similar, but in other respects they're quite different, I would imagine, based on the realities of the
different companies.
The different companies and where the young artists fit in.
Indeed.
We were talking just a little earlier when we were talking about Clemenza, about Owen McCausland having to step in and do Tito for Shada, what, 3 times?
3 times.
And we see this quite often in the COC program, that the artists in the young program are in quite significant roles from quite early on.
They are. They're very good about using their young artists and giving them opportunities when it's appropriate for them. Yeah.
And they do, I don't know if they were doing this when you were doing the program, but the ensemble does.
They were.
It's now its own production of its own day of a main stage. So they were doing that while you were there?
I think my first year was their first time doing that. Okay. But unfortunately, the year that I started, the show, it had only one part for my voice type, and there was a girl who was in her 3rd year who had seniority, and I was new, so she got to do it. We had the same voice type, and there was only one mezzo role, so I wasn't really a part of that production. I got to sing with the chorus. And then in my 2nd year, I was second lady in the Magic Flute, but I was also second lady in the main stage run, so the ensemble show was just another run for me.
Right.
It was just the 13th of 12 other performances of flute we did. Yeah.
That was Lauren Siegel was in that one as well with you?
She was in my main stage
Your
cast.
main stage cast.
Lauren Siegel and Betty Allison were my other ladies.
Yeah, that's who I remember, yeah.
We had so much fun.
Yeah. But with the Lindemann program, there isn't, how are they different?
Well, the way that they do their productions is different. The Lindemann production is a separate thing. It was the Così that we did this past November. It's its own thing. It's kind of, for their situation, it works much better because for the Met to do a main stage version of one of their shows with an ensemble cast would be kind of, I think, a little bit weirder in New York. And also it's such a big house. It's so much more pressure, and I guess It just didn't seem realistic. Plus, the theater there's no nights off. There's something,
Right.
like, they don't have empty time, so they can't really do that in the same way. They can't just plug us in. So we do a separate production in a smaller theater in New York, and we have orchestra, chorus, costumes, beautiful sets, but it's a young artist only, which is nice.
A young orchestra only, or
it was the Juilliard Orchestra.
Oh,
and they were fantastic. But we had Alan Gilbert conducting from the New York Philharmonic, so certainly no compromises made there.
Yeah, but a different approach.
Yeah, it was about a 1,500 seat theater, which is a really great size for us. Most of us are in our mid-20s, so to be given the responsibility to sing a lead role at the Met when you're still in a training program at that age would be a little bit more of a, just because it's such a big theater compared to the Four Seasons Center, which it's actually very friendly for young voices. I don't know if the Met is really ideal for that. For young singers, to make their debut.
So you said that was COSI this past week?
Yes, it was COSI.
So that's giving you a real head start on next year's.
I had done it before that, even though at the Glenn Gould School when I was in my last year. So this will be my third COSI coming up.
Won't get stale, we hope.
No. This is going to be a completely different production.
Lovely.
Yes, I think Adam McGoyan has envisioned some very imaginative and fantastical stuff for our production.
Tell me a bit about Clemenza.
Clemenza?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Another parallel, although it's not quite as a very specific one, group or cultural event that we're basing it on. It's an updated version, but it's not quite as focused only on one thing, right? So we have a set that kind of, to me, it reminds me of Lincoln Center, but I've heard also people say it looks like the Kennedy Center in Washington, which I haven't been to, so I don't know for sure, but it's the same kind of 70s era architecture, white marble, large, expansive facades, and I guess a very imperial and even intimidating atmosphere that's created. It's stark,
You're somewhere between an opera house and a train station if you go to one of these really old style train stations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the costumes are kind of 70s, but with a little bit of a traditional Roman flavor to it. I do have a toga, but it's updated with headband, aviators, and running shoes, like 70s style running shoes.
Sony Walkman and joggers equipment and stuff.
Yep, I don't have a Walkman. That would be really neat. I wish I did, but I have everything that a runner would need, and I'm pretty much running all the time in the show.
Yeah, I saw it the night that Owen did.
He did it 3 times.
Oh, I saw one of them anyway.
He did almost half the run.
Really?
3 out of 8. It's a lot for a cover.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you, with that particular production, does a production like that arrive kind of pretty much all blocked in? Did you get to work with Christopher Alden, or is he was in for it? Yeah.
He was there for the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
The first day until he left after opening night. And what I gathered from him is that the bones of it stayed the same from the original one in 2009 they did in Chicago, but the characters that we developed actually ended up quite different than the original cast. So I'm sure he's always open to that, to exploring another aspect of a character. And it was the same basic structure, but yeah, I saw a video from the original production, and I think we took it in a new direction.
So you felt like you were able to bring something into it and there was room to evolve a character, or you were...
Well, it wasn't so much what I wanted. That's not how it should be. The director's vision is, that's why we have directors, I guess.
Yeah.
But what we were able to do is, over the course of the 4 weeks of rehearsals that we had, what Christopher originally had expected the character would be, it did evolve. And it evolved through, I guess, how his original vision manifested through me as a performer. So it's not necessarily what I would do if someone said to me, create the character of Anio, you have carte blanche, what do you think it should be?
Right.
But it's an equally valid and very interesting take on him, which I'm loving more every time I do it. And it's different from what originally Christopher wanted, and it's different from what I wanted, but I think we both ended up quite happy. That's how it should work.
Yeah, it is interesting. The pants roles in that particular opera they're curious. They're hard for an audience to wrap your brain around, because some of these, I mean, if you think of a role like Fidelio, where it's a woman who is disguising herself as a man, the
audience knows. And
the audience knows, and they're along with. But here, there's more of a head scratch to
belief.
You know, what is it?
Especially when, as we have in our production, the costumes are kind of androgynous.
Yeah, they're very much so.
Clearly telling you what you're supposed to see when you look at that character. In fact, I think some of the critics have been confused and have mentioned things in their reviews about thinking I was a girl because I have longer hair.
Yeah,
the toga
it was a
thing.
very androgynous costume.
Now I can understand how that would happen. If you didn't know the story really well and read the program notes, you could see that I could go either way.
It was interesting because I was wondering in Mozart's own time who would have played those roles.
Castrati or women.
So those would have been castrati roles in Mozart's time still?
I don't know for sure.
I don't know either.
If in this opera, I mean, I know that there were castrati. When Mozart was writing opera, castrati were a thing. They existed and people wrote for them and they sang a lot of roles. But I don't know if Sesto and Anio would have been women from the start or castrati originally. Yeah, I should really check that out.
That's an interesting one.
I have a feeling it's women, only because of the range of it. I've sung roles before that were originally castrati, and they're written in a different way. They almost feel higher
than this, which is closer to an alto role, or to a male alto role.
I don't know. Sesto's a little lower. The range for the both guys is about the same, but the arias for Sesto sit in the middle, and then they extend lower and higher in coloratura and in certain ornaments and stuff. But the average range of Anio is higher. It's just a little higher. Like they both go to the same extremes, but the one that I'm singing is a little higher. It's more like the range of a soprano role like Susanna or something from Marriage of Figaro. Just a little bit higher than my usual mezzo thing, but I can do it. I'm figuring it out.
So have you got to sing from the stage at the Met so far? Or?
Not in a performance, but I have twice for auditions, so I know what it feels like, and it feels amazing.
Does it require a bigger voice? Is it a forgiving hall? Is it a hard hall to sing?
It's a very forgiving hall. I don't think it requires a particularly bigger voice. I don't think small voices are ideal for it, but I wouldn't have to modify mine. Like I wouldn't feel being out on that stage that I wasn't giving enough. I have a kind of medium-sized voice, I think you would say, and I've got plenty. It's a great acoustic, and it's just designed to make voices sound great. Yeah.
Well, plenty of voice is no problem in this one. It sounds beautiful in the Four Seasons.
Four Seasons.
Yeah,
again,
lovely.
It's about half the size, or just a little more than half, but that's another one where it's very forgiving and you don't have to do anything to accommodate the hall. It works for you.
So COC, let's stay with there just for another couple of minutes. As I was mentioning when we were sitting down, the last time we were talking, they hadn't announced their upcoming season yet, so so this role was embargoed. We couldn't talk about it.
But now they have.
But now they have, and you're coming back next year again. What's that one?
This is Così fan tutte, and I'll be Dorabella, which I love, and I just recently sang in New York. my program at the Met put on their own production, and we did Cousy. So.
And who's your sister?
Oh, my friend Layla.
Oh, really?
Her name's Layla Clare. She's a soprano from BC, and she was in the program with me at the Met when I started. She graduated last year, so we had 1 year overlap.
Oh, yeah.
And I still get called Layla in the hall by Met staff because we apparently look a lot alike. We don't think we do, but everyone else does.
It's the Canadians, right?
It's the redheads.
It's the redhead Canadians.
Yeah. We have only one thing in common, I think, and that's red hair. And it's not even the same red. But,
well, there you go.
But if people think I'm her, I'm flattered because she's gorgeous. So it'll be really neat. I guess traditionally, Cousy, they don't try and find two singers that look alike, but why not, you know, if you can.
Why not? It would work.
And it might also add another level of
confusion,
interest, maybe a subtle undertone of, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, something that would confuse the boys even more. If they might not actually know which one of us they were talking to.
So a lot of Mozart in your life at the moment.
Yeah.
And beyond Mozart? I mean, do you feel like you're lining up your bucket list of roles and stuff?
Yeah, well, I've got the things that I want to do all sorted out. I'm just waiting for people to hire me for them.
Oh yeah, which are the ones you want to do?
I want to do more Britain. I've done already the two roles in Britain that I like the best. This is Nancy in Albert Herring and Hermia in Midsummer Night's Dream. But I could never get enough of it. So even though there's not a great deal of Britain being done, actually the Met's doing some Britain next year, I think. And so is
CRC's doing Peter Grimes.
But that's not one of the ones that really has anything for me.
And Billy Budd doesn't either, really. So there you go.
No, pretty much just those two for me. But that's enough. And if I can do at least every couple years a Britain opera, I'd be happy. Rossini I love. It's easy for me. So Rosina, Cenerentola, Italiana, that kind of stuff. I'd be happy to do as much of that as the world is willing to offer me. I guess I'd also like to move into some slightly heavier French repertoire, like Gluck and Berlioz. I'm not sure how many years I would need before that's totally ideal, but I think some of it I can start with. I love it, yeah.
So where's art song fitting into the picture with a busy opera life at the moment?
Well, it might sound busy, but the thing is, you know, if you do 2 or 3 productions a year, which, you know, at this early stage in my career, that's about as much as I can hope for. That leaves a lot of time in between for recitals and concerts. So I have plenty of time. And I don't know how it happened, but I've been really lucky in the early phase of my career to have quite a few offers for recitals. I think for some singers, maybe that's something they have to fight harder for. They have to really try and get the concert things to go. But I've always had almost more than I can accommodate. And it's not necessarily the biggest organizations or the most prestigious. I mean, sometimes, like Roy Thompson Hall, that's great.
Yeah.
But I'll do recitals pretty much anywhere that I can, if it's a good venue and I'm able to use a pianist that I like to work with.
Last March, just after your first visit here, was when you did the Rufus Wainwright Song Cycle for Music Toronto.
Yeah.
And you were working with Stephen Philcox for that one. And so I had 2 questions about that. One was whether the Wainwright cycle, whether you've done that again or whether that...
I haven't done it again yet. I think I would, absolutely. But most of the recitals I do are in the kind of Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal area, and I just thought that might be too much of it because it's only been a year, right? So since then, I thought I should do it, give it a little more time, or do it somewhere far away.
Has he been running with it? Has he been trying to work with it with other people?
You mean trying to get other singers to perform it? I don't think he's pushing it. Actually, just was published about a month ago. and they sent me a copy. It was really nice. I opened it up, and inside there's a thank you to myself and the pianist that I was preparing it with in New York. We actually worked with Rufus quite a bit on the manuscript, on the actual notations, because he's coming at it from a pop side. I mean, he has actually quite impressive knowledge of classical music, but and the classical, not just the oeuvre, but the actual technical aspect. He knows what he's talking about. But what he asked me to do was to help him notate it in a way that someone like me would be able to execute, would know what he was asking for. So he said, this is what I want it to sound like, and he would demonstrate, and this pianist friend of mine, and I would go, okay, well then you need to write this and that and that. So I guess this is the first score I've helped to create, and it was amazing to see it. Now that it's published, I think it'll be probably programmed more. But it wasn't published when I did it, and it up until January, I think it hadn't been. So
it's a big challenge in terms of the energy of those songs where he is his own accompanist and whether he can be as schizo as he likes without having to arrange it ahead of time with his alter ego. It's harder when it's a singer working with an accompanist. There has to be a huge level of, I don't know what you would call it, simpatico or something.
You just have to really listen and know the person. And that's why I chose Stephen, because Stephen's been my main pianist and coach since I was 19.
Back to Royal Conservatory.
Yeah, since my first year at the Con. So if any pianist knows what I want and what I'm going to be doing next and it can read me, I would say it's him. So it wasn't really that hard for us. We just kind of fell into it, and we both love the music. It's not easy, but it's very rewarding.
So speaking of recitals, you've got one coming up in March, and in fact that was our main excuse or pretext for doing this interview this time, because it's nice to have something that's present and something that you're doing currently, but also something coming up. It's nice to have that. So this is for Roy Thompson Hall's Art of, they call it Art of Song?
Canadian Voices.
Canadian Voices.
The series, and they do it at the Glenn Gould Studio, which I'm grateful for, because I think it's because they have that venue in their umbrella. If I could choose between the two, I'd rather use Glenn Gould Studio. I love the hall, Roy Thompson Hall. I actually worked there for 4 years, so I saw a lot of vocal recitals in there, and it works for some voices, but I think for mine it wouldn't be the ideal. It's
not a great, and I mean it depends where you're sitting in the hall sometimes as well as to whether. I've been on the second mezzanine for people who you thought would take no prisoners in that hall, and really the hall has kind of brought them to their knees a little bit. I agree. The big voices I've heard there, they sounded good, but it doesn't show. I mean, it wasn't designed for solo recital. It wasn't. So it's nothing against Roy Thompson Hall. It's just, you know, it's nice to have a right-sized hall for what you're actually. And I also like to be able to almost see everybody that I'm singing to. At least know that if the lights were up, they could see my face clear enough to know what my expression is and really see my eyes, because that's a major tool for communication. Windows to the soul, as they say. And since my mouth is doing all kinds of wacky, contorted stuff, trying to get the vowels out, the eyes are the only thing that's left kind of available to communicate like While the mouth is wrestling with all the eyes, the eyes are not wrestling. Right. Nice one. Yeah, who's your, so tell me about your program for that recital. Have you got it all? I do. I have it all sorted out. Just kind of got the last piece into place a couple weeks ago. It's been a long time coming. It's a program that I originally started working on in undergrad, and I had thought at that point that I would do it for a school recital and use a few of my colleagues, instrumentalists, to kind of make up a small chamber orchestra, which I actually arranged it myself for a wind quintet. It wasn't written for that, but I said, okay, well, you know,
you can play the horn line here, and you can play the bass line there. And I had it all planned out, and they were all excited we were going to do it. And then I think there was some bureaucratic roadblock, and it wasn't doable. But I've wanted to do this for so long, and it's basically The Seven Deadly Sins by Kurt Weill, which is an orchestrated piece. And it also has a male vocal quartet, which I was going to replace with winds, you know.
Great.
So now I'm doing it with just piano. And what we've done instead of filling in the blanks with instrumentalists, we're filling in the blanks with other pieces on themes of sin that fit with the original intention that Weill had for the work, which is not the traditional biblical sinning concept that we all kind of learn as children. Thou shalt not do this and that. It's really highlighting how sin in our society has been completely reimagined to almost be the opposite of what was originally classified as. And this takes place, I think, in the 20s. He didn't write it then, but I think it takes place in the 1920s. So the protagonist, Anna, is sent out into the world by her family to make money for them, send it back home so that they can build a house. And I guess they're struggling. They live in Louisiana in a very small community, and they don't have any money, so they send her out and they tell her, do whatever you have to do, but just get rich quick. So she's a dancer, so she tries to get a job, you know, legitimate job, dancing at a theater or with a ballet or in movies, whatever she can. And she finds that in this cycle that she's fallen into, that she gets drawn further and further into corruption and sin. But she doesn't want to be a part of that. She wants simplicity. She wants a home. She wants to fall in love with a person that she loves, not for money, but for who they are. She wants to eat well, take care of herself, and she wants to relax and basically live the way that she should be living. But every time she does that and indulges in her, you know, her natural instincts, her family says that she's lazy, that she's greedy, that she's lustful, that she's doing all these things that really she's doing the opposite. But
interesting.
They want her to stay with this rich old guy who's going to pay for, basically as a courtesan, pay for her fur coats and give her lots of money, and she'll have to sleep with him. And she doesn't want to do it. She falls in love with a poor young man who treats her very well and respects her, and they say, no, you can't do that. You got to stay with this old guy because Fernando, your young lover, is not going to pay the bills. So what I've done is I've tried to find songs to complement the Weill piece that that fit with this kind of flip side of the coin.
And you're going to interweave them, or so it becomes a through line for the recital.
There's no intermission. The Weill structure is prologue, seven sins, epilogue, and we have for each of the seven sins one or two more songs to kind of make a little group. So there'll be seven little groups with a prologue and an epilogue. I like it.
That sounds nice. It's, and a through line, a character through line as well to work with, which is great.
Absolutely.
Not having to imagine it sometimes. Some song cycles, you know, there's a kind of emotional character through line, but you can't overdo it because you can't do Winterreise as if it's the same guy talking all the time.
No. But this you really can.
You can.
Although the other songs that I've got are all over the map. You know, they range from Monteverdi to Zarzuela to Schubert to Cole Porter, you know, everything under the sun.
Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington.
That's a good one. That's a good one. No, that's not the one we picked.
It's not for this one.
We have Love for Sale from the New Yorkers, that's for Lust.
Nice.
Old love, new love, any love but true love.
Who's your pianist for this one?
His name's Ken Noda. I wasn't able to work with Stephen for this one because we needed to, Ken and I have been working on this in New York for quite a long time, and I didn't want to leave it to the last minute. I wanted to be able to, I figured I needed someone from New York so that we could prepare it together starting, you know, many months before, like I would always want to try and do. So we've been working in New York, and then I'm here now, but we're going to have another month to prepare right before, because I go back on March 1st. And he's on the staff at the Met. He's the music director, I suppose you could say, the artistic, well, not the artistic director. I think the head coach would probably be the appropriate term for the Lindemann
for
program.
the Lindemann program.
I don't know what the official titles are, but he's also been for a long time James Levine's assistant and right-hand man. So definitely a very lucky me to be able to work with Ken. He's the most supportive and encouraging and positive, wonderful person, and he loves the program too. Like, really loves it.
Sounds like a good one. And jumping around all over the map,
Sure.
I noticed the Glenn Gould Foundation is announcing the new Glenn Gould Prize winner next week, I think. And I noticed
Stephen and I are
a press release that said that you had been added to the program.
Yes, they were trying to find a way to fit me in, and we've been back and forth about it for a while. But I'm glad I get to work with Stephen again, because this is something we've done before together. I think 2 years ago, 2 prizes ago, we did a little mini recital for that same event.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so I'm going to reprise it again.
I think this one's from the stage at the Sony Center, though, isn't it? Or
yeah, the other one was at the AGO.
Yeah, which was a little friendlier. Are they going to mic you at the Sony Center?
I don't know. Well, they mic'd me at the AGO because it was a big kind of conference
Barn
hall
of a
room.
Yeah.
And there was no acoustic. But we're going to be on stage at the Sony Center, and also the audience is on stage, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think they have, it's a dinner, so I think they have the tables on the stage. They've got it all opened up. So it'll probably be okay without a mic.
So what are you going to do there? Do you know? Well, yes, you must know. It's next week.
They only asked me like 3 days ago officially to do this. Originally it was going to be a duet program with another singer who couldn't do it. So me as a solo performer is new. And I've got some ideas. I think I'll probably be singing the Seguidilla from Carmen. And I don't know for sure. I mean, Stephen and I have probably like 10 or 12 hours of repertoire that we could choose from. We might just play it by ear. It's more exciting that way.
So things like that do just pop up out of the blue? They
really do. More here than in New York. But I guess I've got some good contacts in Toronto now.
And on the New York scene, I remember when you were doing the Wainwright, you talked about how that cycle was done at some other, the Brooklyn, someplace in Brooklyn,
done
I think you said?
in an interesting way. Not in Brooklyn, it was
Not
done.
in Brooklyn.
His opera was in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Academy. And it was actually around the same time that I was preparing the cycle and working with him that his opera came out. So the other performance of this song cycle was with the New York City Opera. Yeah, City Opera.
Okay, New York City
They did
Opera.
a sort of, they reinterpreted it though. They had 4 different singers. And they did it like a, I don't know. They split it all up and they just took turns. And it wasn't what he originally intended for it to be, but it worked. And that was, I think, November 2011? Yeah. It was interesting. I saw that performance and I really liked it. But I like it also as one person telling the story, you know, because it really does tell the story of how he dealt with the passing of his mother. And I think it's neat from, like we were talking about song cycles before, to just go on that journey.
Find the through line and then have a chance to. It's such a concentrated medium. I don't know how anyone who does opera can't use it as basic training for being able to
There's a lot
go
of
from 0 to 60 in 4 measures. Hit the ground
From song
running.
to song, you're a completely different person. It's more difficult than opera. I think that's a unanimous agreement among singers that recitals and art songs are more difficult.
More exposed.
You have to create the costumes, the sets, the lighting, the orchestra, the whole thing in one 2 or 3 minute microcosm.
And then let it go.
And then completely start a new show. Do like
Yeah,
Tristan, and then do Marriage of Figaro, and then the next one is like Damnation de Faust. And it's just kind of like exercise for the brain, like weightlifting.
Yeah, it is. It is. Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Did I see your name next year? Next season?
April, I'm going to be doing a duet program. I think the 26th of April, 26th and 27th, around there.
And you know what that one's all about yet? Or?
Well, I think it's like, the Lacme duet and the Barcarolle from Hoffmann and Solaria from Figaro. It's just standard female duets.
Oh, okay.
Like the popular opera duets for soprano and mezzo.
So you'll get to revisit from the stage some of your record store repertoire? Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that my debut on that stage will be something, it's not going to throw me off. That's something I've done before. It'll be a really comfortable and fun way to, well, I've sung on this stage before, but not officially. Only after hours.
I remember you telling me that story.
I know what it
last
sounds
time.
like.
It was great. I was wondering if the Met had a record shop. So you haven't snuck out on that stage after hours, or?
Oh, sure. I mean, but I'm allowed now because I'm a young artist there. So.
Right. So you just to go.
Although it's really hard to do with the Met because when they're not doing a show, they're rehearsing something else, or they're setting up, or they're changing sets between two. It's very rare that it's empty. Like never, ever empty.
Wow.
There's always at least like 30 or 40 stagehands doing something. It's like a hive of ants, that building. It's constant activity. It's like just this pulsing energy. It never shuts down.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's very exciting to be a part of. Yeah.
So a totally different line of thought in terms of the business of keeping it all moving along. It interests me to know the extent to which, who helps you do that. I mean, when the Glenn Gould Foundation decides they're going to get in touch with you, do you have to be super organized at that level, or have good people around you? How does it work? How does one find the PR, artist management, all that side of holding it together?
I mean, I've been very lucky in that regard. I've had a manager since I was still in school, Dean Artist Management. There's a few of them that work together at the firm, so I guess I didn't go through what might be difficult for some singers coming out of school or coming out of programs and then trying to find management. I had it quite early. I think I was 21 or so. So I don't know. I don't really know how the career works without one. I've always had one. And then publicity-wise, I also got very lucky. My friend Elizabeth Bowman, who I went to school with, and I've known since I was probably 11 or 12. She was a singer and then became a publicist just around the time that I needed one.
Wow.
And I was her first client, and we've been working together. And as she's learning her craft and kind of getting stronger and more and more clientele, my needs are growing, and I'm also learning what I need. I don't know exactly the extent to which publicity and PR management will play a part in my career yet, but something like earlier today we did a photo shoot for Toronto Life magazine, and she, I guess, arranged that. I've been in their magazine before, and from that previous piece they thought I'd be a good fit for this particular article, and they got in touch with her and she arranged it, she booked it for me, and she's really reasonable, her rates, and I would happily pay more if she's listening. So I think it's a no-brainer for me.
Right.
I don't go all out with the PR. I think there's a fine line. You don't want to overmarket yourself and then have people go like, well, who does she think she is? I can't take this seriously. But if you do nothing, you aren't doing yourself any favors, because the world is becoming a place where presence on the internet and presence in the media is often the defining factor in the difference between getting or not getting a job. As strange as that sounds.
So to what extent in things like the COC Ensemble program or the Lindemann program, or for that matter, things like the post-secondary programs like the Royal Conservatories, to what extent is it ingrained for people that you're a self-employed entrepreneur and you need to know how to run your life that way, or you're in trouble?
Well, I again got very lucky from what I've heard from colleagues who went to different schools. The Glenn Gould School is way ahead of the curve in that department.
Really?
I had a class every year I was there called Career Development and Communications. Maybe they were two separate classes. And they taught us things like how to make a website, how to make a press kit, how to craft a really solid biography, how to make a resume that's easy to read and professional. And it wasn't just like one workshop. It was an entire year. Every year I was there. The whole year you took this course, and there were multiple assignments. We had Andrew Kwan, who's an artist manager for instrumentalists. He taught the course, and he taught us how to do grant applications. We had to do a grant application in the class as an assignment. You had to pretend to be a different instrument than you were and make the whole thing, present it to him, and he would mark it or grade it as if he were really on a grant panel. And I've consequently received multiple grants from the Canada Council and other places simply because it didn't scare me, and I was able to do it. And I think I did a much better job than if I hadn't taken his course. I don't know, it would have been over my head. But yeah, I got really lucky. So I don't know if you go to a school, maybe a more traditional university. I'm not sure what it's like at U of T. They might have the occasional workshop on, marketing or publicity or anything to do with that. I don't really know, but I do know that while I was at Glenn Gould, I would compare notes with colleagues at other schools, and they would say, whoa, we don't have anything like that. We have no idea how that works. So it just depends where you go. The COCs, they're pretty good about it. They also, though, expect that at the level of that program that you would already kind of have a base knowledge. So they're not teaching you the nuts and bolts of career management. They're teaching you more like refining things. And they're more concerned with, I think, the manager aspect. They have us audition for a lot of managers, same with the Lindemann program. Their mandate is to try and get your career started.
Place you.
So because I already had one, I don't think they really put much pressure on me in that regard. But people who don't, they would introduce you to managers. They'd make sure they come and hear your performances. They would bring in, sometimes they bring in managers to come and talk to us about what does a manager look for? What do they want in an artist? How do you make yourself more attractive to them? How do you even get noticed by them? And again, I probably didn't pay attention, but I think it's definitely an element in young artist programs for sure, and some schools, but not all. I think it should be in all. It's very important. Yeah, I actually have a lot of colleagues come to me and ask for advice because
on how
to how to market yourself, how to deal with that whole murky water of publicity and PR and
pushing on the door
management.
That's marked push.
And well, how to make your resume reflect your best self. So you can sing really well, and if they can't read your resume and it's too confusing and it's full of typos, that might get you in the waste bin as opposed to in the folder, after a day of hearing people over and over. If your materials don't reflect the quality of your performance, sad as it is to say, that can have a big impact.
Where does recording fit into the whole? I've heard some people say the main reason for recording these days is in order to have your recordings as part of the package.
Do you mean professional recordings? Like with a label? Or just
label. I don't know. I don't know where label comes into it these days anymore. But professional quality, not just archival recordings. You know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking your recital. You said it's at the Gould, which is a professional standard recording studio.
Thanks for reminding me. Actually, I mean to see if we can just turn the mics on and have something. Even
if it's archival or.
Yeah, I don't plan to release it as a CD.
Yeah.
I have no intention of that, but.
But to have it as part of the package.
Or for my website maybe, for YouTube. People hire people off YouTube now. If they need someone and they get recommended, someone says, oh, you should check out that mezzo, I heard her and blah, 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 and she was good, then they'll find my YouTube video, and if it's good, then they might call my manager. And if it's not, then they won't.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
It's important. It's really important. I'm of the mind that live performances, good live performances will sell me better than anything I do out of context in a studio. So I try and get, you know,
live from the floor equivalent.
I think I'm at my best. May not be true for everyone, but generally I find in the moment I do better work than in a kind of calculated, very careful studio environment. Yeah,
well, I mean, I would assume, especially in a lot of songs, that that the breathing tells a story from the beginning to the end of the song. It's not each phrase, so that studio work often robs you of the ability to actually breathe right through a whole song from feeling to thought to feeling.
To you.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah.
To me, I do this because I like connecting with audiences, not because I like hearing myself in a small room with padding on the walls. You know, if that's what I wanted to do for a career. So yeah, that's
lots of padded walls in small rooms.
I don't like listening to myself. Actually, I'd much rather not. That's another thing against studio recordings. It's probably consistent with most singers. We don't.
You're having to micro-analyze and re-listen.
To go back and evaluate yourself and make the call of whether it's good enough or not. Because always you're going to feel that it's not good enough. You're going to listen to it and be like, I can do better. So, but your body can't do 50 takes in a day.
Yeah.
So you do have to settle, and that's very frustrating. I'm actually making my first CD next season. Not me. It's not like Wallis Giunta's debut album. It's a song cycle that was written for me by a wonderful American composer, William Perry. And he wrote a great piece. I won't give too much away about it because I don't know if I'm allowed, but it's going to be recorded with the Dublin Symphony in spring of 2014 in Dublin. The Arta, I think it's called, RTE, that symphony. And it'll be released by Naxos sometime after that. So that'll be cool.
That will be very cool.
And that takes the pressure off me too, because it's a collaborative effort. There's an orchestra, conductor. I'm the only singer in the whole thing. The whole CD is this large cycle orchestral work, but I think I won't be as hard on myself. Yeah, because you know, I won't be the only one critiquing it. There'll be lots of other people worried about their aspect of the performance.
Right. And I mean, for an audience, it has it sounds like there's a story to the recording itself. It's not, I'm putting together my resume CD.
No.
It's not
this
my
is
debut
a
album.
Piece.
It's
a piece he wrote for me. He said, I haven't met him yet. We're going to meet in March. But he said he's been following my career, and he wanted to work with me. So he'd had an idea for this cycle, and he thought I'd be a good fit. So he's crafted it to fit my range and my kind of personality. And I'm really honored and really excited.
Thank you. Lovely to visit with you again. We should try to make a habit of this when you're in town, okay?
I'll be here this time next year.